Good evening, and welcome to the 487th Penfield Historic Preservation Board meeting. I'm Tom Combs. I'm the board chair. First item is to call the meeting to order, which I'm doing. We're going to have approval of the minutes. Any comments or questions on the minutes from last time? I think we set a record for the longest set of minutes that I've ever seen in 17 years.
I tried to keep them short. It was hard.
Jan, I did have a couple of minor typos that aren't worth mentioning. I'll give them to you afterwards.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, and the next item is certificates.
Oh, sorry. We need a motion for that.
Oh, yeah, we need a motion, of course.
Move to accept minutes.
And a second. Thank you. Any other observations, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Minutes are approved. Certificates of appropriateness. The last meeting, we approved the appearance of the sign that was proposed down at Rising Storm Brewery at the Daisy Flour Mill. But we made that contingent upon seeing a proposal for lighting for the sign, which we didn't see. Shannon, did they provide that to you?
They did. We don't have a photo of it, but they did confirm that they're going to be using gooseneck fixtures that hang over the top or are fixed to the top of the sign rather than the front lighting off the ground, because those were the two options we assumed were most likely possible. So they are going with the gooseneck fixtures.
Okay. All right, very good.
Did they say how many?
I believe 2.
So any comments on that from the board? Does that lighting seem appropriate, adequate for the sign?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay, and we don't need a vote on that. Okay.
Nope, it was mostly just a contingency, so I wanted to give you guys an update, and if you had any issues with it, to let me know. Other than that, we're good to go with it.
Okay, thank you. All right, the next is the informational items, the Clark House and the Clark Road Barn. There was a public input meeting on February 15th that was very well attended. Shannon was there and I was there. There was a variety of speakers, a variety of comments. That discussion was not broken up between the two items, the house and the barn. There was one comment on one and one comment on the other, with another comment on both of them. And it was just a listening opportunity for the town board. It was not for discussion of any particular suggestion that was made that evening. Shannon, did you have some follow-ups or some comments on that? I know when I was there, I took notes on all what the folks had to say until it got kind of repetitive after a bit.
Yeah, I did as well. I think the big takeaways were just that a lot of residents expressed that they wanted more engagement, more opportunity to be involved. So one of the most frequent suggestions was creating a committee, which I believe the town board is taking into consideration for the Clark Road Barn project. So they are beginning stages of that. So let's see here. So that is what was achieved as far as the barn, but most people said that they wanted to see the barn saved rather than demolished. So I think that was mostly the overall takeaway for the barn. As far as the Clark House, there was a lot of different suggestions and opinions that were thrown around. So I think that the town board's still taking those into consideration and just kind of trying to move through the process still.
Would you like an update from a town board member?
Yeah, I actually was going to ask for that because there was
We had a work session.
That.
Yes, we had a work session as a follow-up, and we broke it into two areas. And the one area is the Clark House, and the other area is the barn. Since most of the conversation was revolving around the barn, and the first, when we first heard about the condition of the barn, everybody wanted to tear it down, but there was such people kept coming forward saying there's ways to save it, and they had all these thoughts out there. So we thought, okay, let's start a committee. Let's do a committee and have some of the people that have ideas about, they think they know where grant funding can come, or they want to see, what could be done to preserve it. If there's a way, that's great. But so we're going to have a resolution coming forward to create a committee to look at the Clark Road barn and appoint some staff members and some residents, and they can get together and have a conversation and, get an estimate of what they, look through different ideas, and that'll be the charge, and then come back to us with any ideas they have that they think are pertinent that could be achievable goals. So we'll see how that goes. And the other part is the house. The house, you all saw the presentation that talks about having the lodge, and a lot of the input that was in the from this group, Shannon put together, and so everybody in the town board could read it, as well as we all watched your last meeting, and took those considerations for Bergman to look at, as well as some of the things that we thought were good ideas that came out of that input, and sending it back to Bergman to what it would cost to do the things that came out of the discussion here and the discussion there. And, then we'll go out to bid, because we're going to follow up. We just wanted to kind of cover some of the great ideas that came out that, especially from here, because you all have a historical perspective that not everybody has. There was a lot of input at that meeting. It was kind of talking about what happened before and this and that, but not looking to what we're actually looking at. That so we'll see. One of the things we talked about was a lot of people are concerned about the house being just something to put a lot of things in, as part of the lodge. And it's like, well, do we really want to do that? We'd rather have the house be the house separate from that. So that takes something off. Bergman would have to change what they had planned and have a more of a separation that, and probably take down the back end of the walls, because they thought it was all going to connect, and we're saying we don't really want that to happen. If it means that the Clark House is just going to be a storage unit for the lodge, So,
Oh, excuse
so
me,
some of those
Linda.
things came from here and came from the
Just
input.
want to make sure that I understood. People were suggesting that you save the house as a separate structure?
No, the house, everybody, our thoughts, the town board, and nobody said anything differently about saving the house. It was just a matter of how Bergman had laid it out. It was, you heard it. They wanted to put, like, things that were in the lodge, like the chairs and the tables and everything in the house, versus, really taking a look at the house. Let's separate that idea. Don't use the house as a storage unit.
Or using the house more than they proposed?
No, not even that. It's just kind of, don't use it for the lodge. Have the lodge separated from the house on that level.
Oh, have a
They can
separate
connect.
use.
Physically separated, Linda?
Well, this is what, it was always going to be like a walkway or something along those lines, but yeah, so that it's not used by the lodge. They're together but different,
Okay.
You want to save the, I don't know, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but it's a matter, everybody wants to save the house, and we wanted to put up a lodge, but the way it was presented was that they would be together in the house only to be a storage unit for the lodge, as opposed to being its independent entity that one day maybe we can fix up enough that people can actually, go in there. So that's the only consideration. Does that make sense? It's not like...
Well, yeah, if I understand correctly, they're proposing to separate occupancy type for the lodge and the house, and use house for some kind of different business or something else than the lodge, right?
I don't know. That's how it'll come down the
Okay.
pipe later.
Yeah, I just don't...
Yeah, I think that's just the newest topic of discussion, is that the 1832 portion in Bergman's original proposal was being used for utilities and storage. But at the most recent town board meeting, you guys discussed that maybe that's not the best fit for it because it's not really saving the historical value of the building itself. So maybe it should be treated separately and not as part of the lodge design, because maybe it should be a separate piece. It should be saved on its own, since that's kind of the target way that we're going anyways, is that, the back two portions are being demolished and the front 1832 portion is being saved. So it's obviously in its own right significant, so it should be saved independently and be used in a different way. I don't know if that is a better explanation or not,
Yeah,
but
I think it's a good explanation. They just have, I believe the reason that they wanted that to be part of the lodge and being so small as a storage and so on, because of accessibility or lack of such accessibility to the house.
Right.
So you can't really do it use it as a public
Right.
space on its own.
And I think that that's also part of the discussion is what can it be used for, because it, to maintain the existing staircase, to maintain the second floor, they don't meet current ADA requirements for public access. So what is to be done with it?
Yeah.
But that's the next thing on the list that hasn't gotten quite far along enough to have the discussion yet, just the beginning stages.
Linda, if you could go back to the board for a question. If they're going to form a committee for looking at the barn, I would hope they're looking at maybe tapping some people in our committee to be involved with that, because we have a little bit of a history with it. You indicated that the town board watched our last month's meeting.
I believe everyone.
I haven't noticed any action as far as putting a tarp on the roof at the barn or anything else going on that we gave you guys some recommendations of what to do to preserve the buildings. Is that in the works, or?
I don't believe so. No, when I was saying.
Well, can I follow up on why it's not in the works?
I can't, can you ask? But what I was saying was about the house. It was a lot of the comments.
Oh, no, I understand, but I was going back because I don't think we've gotten close enough to comment on anything, plans for the house yet. But if your public was overwhelmingly wanting to save the barn, why don't you go over there and put a tarp on the roof so it doesn't get any worse?
Yeah, you beat me to that question, Chuck. It's a good one.
And ultimately, if you're going to save the house, why don't you go over there and get some air handlers running and get some air moving around so you don't come back and say that the house is full of mold, we have to condemn it. Mm-hmm. We gave the town board written recommendations on both those, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, and it seems like the discussions about the barn are now going to be somewhat prolonged while they get estimates on what it's going to cost to do something with it. And in that case, you're right, anything we can do to save whatever is left there now.
It's not going to fix itself.
Okay.
Thank you.
So maybe we can document some of these thoughts again for the board. There was a suggestion, I can't remember the gentleman's name, of dismantling the barn and moving it across the street behind the house. It almost sounded like his suggestion was to make the barn the lodge in a sense. That's the impression that I got. Don't know if that's possible, but will the board be asking for estimates on the various options for the barn? Demolish it or to fix it where it is, to move it?
There'll be a charge given to the committee about, and it hasn't been written.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, but we'll put specifics in there, what the expectations are of said committee.
Okay.
Linda, is there some kind of assessment, or even if it's done with Shannon's group or something, so that this committee won't be doing some kind of pie in the sky? Won't be doing some kind of pie in the sky answer back to you, that they'll really look at the building as what it is today, not what it was?
There will be staff involved, that's the thing. It's
Yeah,
not going to be.
because I'm afraid
you know.
this came up when Tony was still here, and someone came up with this way off the charts solution for the barn, and it was like, but the barn wasn't even at a condition at that point that it could be done, for less than like $1 million or something like that. So it would really help if the board had or the commission or committee had a realistic understanding of what was going on with the barn.
Right.
I think Chuck has given us enough feedback, so he's told us, the roof is causing some damage. We don't know how much damage, but I'm sure someone does on the town team. And, picking up the barn and moving it might have been a phenomenal idea 10 years ago or 20 years ago, but I don't know whether that's even a possibility now. Would it just disintegrate? Again, I know I keep bringing this up, but it was brought up by Chuck earlier that maybe it's just the timbers that can be saved and incorporated in. But I think the committee should be like, yes, they want to save the barn. That's very noble, but is that realistic? And it seems like doing something and getting it right the first time would save what's left of the barn, even if it is only timbers, rather than come back with something outlandish that we just can't afford or couldn't possibly do.
Right. Well, there's a lot of people that have some expertise, and then there's people that just like the barn.
Mm-hmm.
You want people, you want a cross-section, but you certainly look for some experts, people that have a serious knowledge base of what's doable.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
hopefully.
I suspect you have some of those individuals on this committee.
I would think so. Yeah.
Well,
But,
another idea is to dismantle the bar and use the timbers and some of the boards in this new community center. And that's totally doable.
That could be a thing.
I assume a structural report, is going to be one of the top priorities to see what's salvageable, what's not, what condition it's in, and what's reasonable. I think that will probably be one of the first steps. And also, I assume, someone, a preservation consultant also to help look at it from a historic preservation point of view to help advise the committee and have their input as well. But just like how we said, professionals, experts in those specific fields, but I'm sure the town board will be looking at all of that.
Yeah, we haven't we sat down, the work session, those two things came up. The things that we gave Bergman to take a look at again, see what the cost would be to add this to what we're looking at for that lodge Clark House renovation. And then the barn, because there was this interest that, yes, it can be saved. Some people feel, okay, let's get a committee together and see if it can be, and listen to them. So that we're, when Shannon says there's a lot of engagement, the people wanted engagement, well, that's what we're going to offer. But it's got to be serious, and it's got to be, some criteria to put in this resolution of what the committee will be. So you have something to, at the end of the day, you got some, the deliverables are something that's what we're looking for.
Well, just to reiterate, that all of that is going to take a lot of time. So to Chuck's point, if there's anything we can do to
mitigate.
Stabilize the situation, then we should do that.
Okay, I'll bring it up. I'll send out a note to the.
There was one other suggestion that I thought made sense, although it's maybe not in the Preservation Board's realm, and that's to tie the plan for the park, which has pickleball courts up towards the north end, would be to bring those back so you can make use of the parking and the restrooms that will ultimately be built, as opposed to having something that's in a whole separate area of the park. Thought that sounded like a good idea. Any other comments? Okay. Next on the agenda The other business, the local designation incentives. We had talked about what could possibly be done for, to entice folks who are living in the historic properties to be designated. And we were having a little struggle finding things that would do that. We can offer them a plaque. We talked about seeing if there was any way that we could have a reduction of their tax bill. What were some of the other things?
I think those were the top ones. And then we mentioned possibly, sending out letters, letting people know that they qualify to be locally designated, inviting them to a meeting, giving them more information, things like that. But of course, until we have more incentives, we probably want to hold off on that a little bit. But I just wanted to update everyone and let you guys know that I've been looking more into that, into the tax incentives and things like that. I also reached out to surrounding towns and villages who also have historic preservation boards who require certificates of appropriateness, all of that, who function similarly to how we do, asking them what kind of incentives they offer, how their programs work, things that have worked out well for them. I haven't heard back from too many of them yet, so still waiting on some responses. But seeing what other people do and what other things work, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just try and incorporate it here in a way that works.
Sure. And I think Kathy Knauer has a list of all of the buildings that could be of interest. And but you're right. Before we contact those people, it'd be nice to have a list of things that would be to their advantage.
Yep. Yeah.
Do you know how many properties there might be approximately?
There are a couple hundred, I think.
Yeah,
So
that are on
quite a
that
large
list,
number.
and there's even more than that that definitely qualify that are not on that list.
That list was put together, I think, in the early 70s, so it's,
So the older houses are older now.
they've gotten 50 years older by now. So.
Could we do a motion in our board to ask the town to consider a tax abatement for historic properties in the town?
We've asked the question, Chuck. I don't know if we need a motion to do that. I don't-
Did we get an answer?
I didn't get an answer to
Okay.
when I asked. But that actually, that was back when Marie was here, so that it may have just gotten lost in the shuffle. So let's give it a try without a formal motion. See if we can get some action.
Who are we tasking with the?
I can do that.
Okay. But I mean, does it go through you or does it go through Linda?
Does it
or-
go to our acting supervisor?
Oh,
I
it should
would
go right
think?
to Debbie?
Debbie,
Okay.
Yeah. Is anything else on that subject?
Not really. Just wanted to give you guys an update and keep it on the forefront because we were hoping to possibly have a new property or two locally designated, hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think we talked about doing that if we have a celebration for the 50th anniversary of the preservation, what's the word I'm looking for?
Ordinance.
Of the ordinance.
Yes.
It would be nice to have. You know. Any other topics for discussion? Nothing else on the agenda?
No.
All right. We have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
A motion and a second?
I second.
Second. I don't think we need to vote on the motion to adjourn.
Standard.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Thank you,
Thank you.
PCTV.
What do people do with that?